Diminishing intellectual thinking capacity. This is too many educated illiterates in our country. Why? Then from there, I'll look at Zambia today and why Zambia is failing. And then I'll go and carry those problems, try to see some engineering practice so that I can contribute to national economy. Then I'll look at the opportunities the continent, the African continental free trade area brings to the table for Zambia. Then I'll conclude. Before I do that, I want to introduce myself. I'm first and foremost an engineer, and I work in different parts of the areas. I've got so many. I'm an academic. Through that line, I teach, I do research, and I do advise a number of companies around the world. I'm also a consultant. I own a consultancy company, which is called Limited, and that company employs more than 250 specialized engineers and scientists to actually solve humanity problems. I'm a designer because that's what I do. I design things. If you go around the world, you'll find many of my products actually are in use in many of the transportation systems and those special machines which are all over the world. I'm also an entrepreneur. This is why I manufacture minibuses or utility vehicles, which we have on the road. And one of them, we were supposed to bring it outside here for you to have a look at it. The vehicle is here in Zambia. I'm also the, what you call the founder and editor-in-chief of International Journal of Crash Worthiness. This journal has been going on for nearly 28 years now, and it has got an impact factor of 1.9, so you can actually publish in it as a researcher to actually get some of your work done. This is the only journal in the world which publishes crash capability and many of the impact journals. So I've got all around the world publish their own papers into this journal. Then if you look on the other side, you can see there's like a drawing of a vehicle. That's what OVIV is. That's where it started from. It started from paper all the way down to the vehicle which you see, which has been made as OVIV car. So these are my products. This is what I manufacture, and this is what I sell around the world. This is the research which I've done in many of the things which I've designed for other companies. For example, this is a Ford Fiesta. Many of you would have seen a Ford Fiesta on the road, but you wouldn't have realized that it's me who designed the front end of this vehicle. And here you can see that I'm actually with the president of Ford in Michigan when we were testing to see actually how things behave in order to get it right. So I'm actually giving you now information of saying that our analysis and the research which we carried out has actually resulted very well indeed. I've also done a lot of research for a number of companies. If you go to Airbus and Boeing, you find many of materials which are tested and innovated find on the aircraft itself. On the Airbus 380, the entire fuselage is made of carbon fiber, which I tested and developed for Airbus company. At NASA, I continue to work with NASA, and I've been working with them for nearly 15 years now. And we develop a lot of things. My product have gone to Mars, my product have landed on the moon, my product have gone now to Pluto, and you can see that many of I'm also, of course, an advisor in many aspects. I advise different governments, the United Kingdom government of transport, education. I'm in and out an advisor in those. I present and do a lot of advisory work for the country. I'm also an advisor at the European Union. Before we left, we were very good indeed, and after that, I used to be the sole advisor of the European Union in terms of transportation safety. Let me tell you one story. Today, all of you wear seatbelts in the car because of me. I'm the European Union. I'm the one who wrote the legislation and the standards for the seatbelt testing and the seatbelt wearing and introducing them from where the seatbelt was designed by Volvo in the early 1960s to actually come today that the whole world today wears the seatbelt. So that standard is very important. I'm also an advisor in China. I do advise the Chinese government in many aspects, especially transportation safety. And I am also a visiting professor in China at 2 universities currently, but I've been at 4 universities in the past. And I've introduced many of the curriculums, especially in aerospace, to these students, and many of them now are in higher positions. I'm also an advisor to the United States government. The legislation which they have currently on safety, which is the standard 216, is actually written by me, and I produced that and introduced that to the Senate, and the Senate agreed with it. There's some corrections which I made, and the Senate now uses that as the cornerstone of running their vehicles on the streets in the entire United States. So where are we at Zambia? Zambia is at a very complex crossroad. Why do I say so? Because I believe the not fit for purpose infrastructure, energy, bridges, and all this transport is because of the things which we haven't been doing. We haven't been preparing ourselves to making sure that we turn like what we saw in the videos in Moscow to have that particular first-class introduction of those infrastructure to help the community and then develop the country. So the pillars of the economic stimulus were, of course, those strategies. The right policies are also missing. If you look at the fiscal and monetary, you can actually stabilization. You can actually see that these don't meet up. You look at the fiscal, you look at the monetary, things do not add up. So we need to look at that and then try to see how we can revive some of the things we do. And the collapse of revenue especially is a disaster to say, because the lack of fundamental skills to deliver positive results through being a professional student, be creative, be a critical thinker, and all an analysis, and to be in a team. These things are actually missing in our midst, and we must actually try to revive them in order to go forward as a country which will develop to other levels. So let's look at the equations for prosperity. It's dwarfed by bureaucracy. Too many regulatory uncertainties in Zambia. I can't understand why we've got so many regulations, so many what you call regulatory powers who are actually controlling and dwarfing the businesses. And this needs actually to be rectified. There are too many Quangos. Quangos are these NGOs which are there just in order to talk and mentor, but they don't actually deliver something which is tangible to companies, and these must be also reduced in numbers in order to move forward. Lack of service delivery is the biggest threat to our national development. You can go to any office today, you find that you are there, but the person who's supposed to deliver something will tell you to come 2 weeks later. And one good example is, for example, the Congo, which is called Zema. Zema is a disaster. By now, they should have mapped the entire Zambia for you to get a certificate. Say, I want to be in this location. Is to press a button on the computer, and that location come and tell you cannot be there, or you can be there because of this and that. It takes 3 to 4 years, but which investor will come here to invest money before you get a certificate for 3 to 4 years. I mean, it's unheard of. So all these things must be spoken. The other problem which we have in Zambia is the procurement rules. The procurement rules are flawed in Zambia. I know we want to do what we call reduce corruption, but that is done in a certain particular way which is productive. But at the moment, everything is, you can apply, you can go and submit a tender, and you never hear tender has been closed for 6-7 months, you haven't done anything from there. So it's really ridiculous to do that. What we need to do is to rectify those in order to move forward. And dependency on a pie in the sky, not local solutions. But that I mean that we are dependent mostly on results which are made from outside. But when you bring it locally to Zambia, you find that you cannot use it. If you use it, then you actually not realize the targets which you want to realize. So these things must be understood. The education system also is antiquated. I went, in fact, I'm sorry that the PS has gone because I wanted him to listen to this. How I'm not happy at the new curriculum which has been introduced in Zambia. I'll tell you why. What we have now is what we call a colonial system. And the colonial system will never develop you. So what we need to do is to move away from there and start looking at solutions and the academic excellence which is going to propel this country forward. But now what we've done, I hear and I've read, they've actually produced this curriculum for primary schools and secondary schools where you have primary schools for 6 years instead of 7 years, which is a disaster. It's a total disaster. You cannot reduce the number of years for the young ones. In fact, what you're going to do, you're going to kill the boy student, not the girl student. The girl student will go well at primary levels, and there are curves. If you look at the curve of learning capability, the girl goes well at the beginning of the academic cycle, and the boy will go low. Now, but if you do that, now you reduce to 6 years, you are reducing the capacity of that student to materialize the capability which that person has. The same thing as the curriculum itself. I looked at that. I went to see the director for curriculum. I told him, I said, this curriculum is flawed. In many of the things which you are giving here will not actually bring Zambia to independence. That means academic independence and economic independence. So that is flawed. They must look at that again. Diminishing intellectual thinking capacity. This is too many educated illiterates in our country. Why I say that is because many people educated, they've been to university, they've been to this, but they cannot solve simple problems for the nation. And this is a disaster which we need to eradicate as soon as possible. The other complex is just in the shadows. If you look at every country which has developed, you find that those countries, they've moved on by investing in their own country, by investing in their own people, by investing in their own agricultural system or anything which is local. But if you look at where we are now, we always chase the shadows. We go around the world looking for money when money is around you. You've got everything here in Zambia, but you have to be chasing the shadow. And those shadows are all shadows which will never be progressive to you. These are the IMF, World Banks, FDI, all bilateral companies, all these agreements. Those will only give you debt, and more debt. You will never come out of it once you get into that cycle. Then that's where the dependency on cash pool comes in. This is the original cash pool, which is the beggar's ball, which goes around the streets to beg money. And as you can see, many of the African countries are like that. Give us money, or we are offered this particular type of money, then from there there's no money at all because it's not adequate. Why and how did we get here start asking the questions? Then if you look at Zambia, it tells you that, because I've done research on Zambia. I've taken all the results which are actually advertised and they are published in ZRDC, which is the Zambia Revenue Authority, and you look at that curve. That curve will tell you everything. From the number, it's not only this particular administration, it's the administration from the beginning up to today. Now look at that curve there. There is no progress. The curve is flat. And the curve is very flat. So we haven't been doing our self-service in order to develop our country. Now, you look, there's a peak there, which is going up. Then I'll tell you why that peak is there. It's because in 2008, I personally went to see Mwanawasa in his office. There with me, the picture's there. With Mwanawasa in his office, I told him, I said, Zambia will go down dead if you do not introduce what we call royalty tax. He argued with me for quite some time, then he realized that it was necessary to introduce a tax for the reasons which I gave him. And he called me 2 years later to say, thank you very much. What you did was excellent, and we've now generated enough cash. And where is cash? You can see that on those particular years, you see that rise? Force sporadic performance. You can see that on that line is where we have generated a lot of money. It's because of that royalty tax. Otherwise, we did it. So that means our copper or other minerals are working if we do something better. Look at another mineral tax. It's also flat. Much of the mineral tax which we are losing. We're not collecting enough. You see the credit underneath the what you call the optimum line. So a lot of money is going away without understanding where that money is going away. Yeah? So we must actually look at it again. So let me just go. This is a very important slide which I want to show you, where we have the wrong solution into our problems. So we see all these countries. You go to China, you go to Japan for 30 billion. All these are beggars. These are presidents of countries who are beggars going around the world begging for money. Beggars in Russia. You go to USA for 10 billion. You go to China for 50 billion. You go to Korea for 10 billion. Now, you ask yourself, all these countries here, if you put them together, they create more money than anybody else. Let me just bring that slide. More money than anybody else. What they do is, there is a nearly $87 trillion among all these countries in Africa. They are not using it, but somebody else is using it. Overseas. People like ourselves in the United Kingdom, we are using that money. So you must start now looking at how we can utilize the money which we have today. This is another gimmick, which you call like going to the United States, going to this Lobito. This is the colonial route. It has got nothing to do with the development in Zambia or even in this particular part of the world. So you have to be careful when somebody comes to you that this is why you were sleeping when they were signing it, because he saw that this is just not going anywhere. Stop these colonial gravy trends is the answer. So to eradicate the cash flow, I've introduced a new market. If you look at Africa, 99% is dominated by other products from outside the continent. 99%. So Africa produces very little indeed to produce so that it can sustain itself. So if you look at that, these are the countries which I was talking about. A lot of money. 54 countries, wealth close to 85 trillion. And increasing and growing all the time. But we're not using that money. We're going away to borrow money which are going to be suffering with that money. But what we need to do is create that new market. Value addition of mineral and resources to finished products. We need to do that as quickly as possible. 94%, actually 95% of copper wire, for example, we are the copper industry. If today somebody who did didn't know that Zambia produced copper came to Zambia, they'll see nothing. They won't even know that Zambia produced copper. Because there's nothing to show. There's nothing to show. And if you go to other countries, you see roofs made of copper, this made of copper, all those statues made of our copper and so on. But in Zambia, we don't have that. So I've redesigned all this and said, we need now to create our market. And our market is Africa. And I'll tell you why our market is Africa. The African continental free trade area has given us that opportunity. And we need to embrace it as much as we can. Look at this. Figures tell you exactly what it is. Wire and cable, which we can make in Zambia using very little investment, is $667 billion. You are chasing $18 billion at IMF. Come, that's ridiculous. You've got all this money. $267 billion to tap into. If you get 5% of that, it's good. And it's growing by 6%. If you go with a compact addition, it's growing by that. And you're not tapping into it. What we need is value addition to our copper in order to come to this particular value. Let's look at this. I mean, this is the equation which I put there for somebody who does not understand what the compound annual growth is. Let's look at the market itself, different products which we have. 51.3 billion just in Africa alone. You can have that money every year if you supply your copper wire to all these countries which are actually listed there as making Zambia. Because you are the only country which have got that copper and then there it is in Africa. Why aren't you using the knowledge to actually come to it? And this is what I'm talking about. We must start waking up and start adding value to our copper in order to move away from the cash flow. These are the products which can be made in Zambia. They are very highly product, but they are very small investment. This investment can be done by countries, not even investors from outside. No, it's countries. India is doing that now. It's actually invested in the last 10 years, nearly $84 billion to take out 130 million people out of poverty. We can do that. They are here to say. We can create jobs, we can do this, and this is a formula which I've given you to actually show how you can do it. You can have the mines, which are actually owned by the government. Mines are not supposed actually to be owned by private investors from outside who's reaping you all the time. So you have to actually take that back into nationalization in order to make sure that you get the right things to be done at the end of the day. Then from there, underneath it, when you come to value addition, then you can actually get companies to do that. This is a new formula which have a new smart business which have done. You got the mines, then the mines won't sell their copper directly outside of the market, the mines will sell their copper to government of Zambia. So the Zambian government will keep that material, then from there it will export the material, and the downstream companies which are in Zambia will utilize that material, then all of them will export to other countries, and then from there, Bank of Zambia will receive the money. Not Bank of England and not Bank of China. Bank of Zambia will receive the money. Then after that, they can pay the mines, and they can pay the individuals. And this is a smart business plan. You increase your national revenue by 900%. 900% to increase your revenue. You create real professional jobs in Africa. And these jobs will be in thousands and thousands and thousands. And you reduce ZRDC refunds to 0.1%. At the moment, it's just too high. It's get up to about 30%. All these mines claim what to call VAT. That will be eliminated. Everything must be made inside. These are simple technologies. In fact, they are rudimental technologies. And these rudimental technologies for Zambia will create that